So if you've been around MT09s or Fz09s for any amount of time, chances are you've heard at least one with a cam chain rattle. It's a pretty notorious problem. They'll keep running through it. A lot of people say, oh, it's normal, just let it go. I'm not built that way, so today we're going to install the manual cam chain tensioner, get it all set up, show you a quick way to swap it out. Now, quick disclaimer, if you are not comfortable with the internals of an engine, don't attempt this yourself, take it to somebody who knows what they're doing. If you are comfortable, but you just haven't really seen one of these installation videos that really showed you any kind of detail that you want, hopefully this will solve that for you. That's my problem. I've watched a couple of these videos and some of these guys just kind of skip over all the good parts. So I'm going to show you a little more step by step. I'll try not to drag it out too long and bore you to death, but I want to show you more of how to actually install the thing and also how to set it up. I am doing this on the side stand of the motorcycle. That's going to let all the oil run out of this cover. This cover doesn't have any real oil pressure on it, but it is kind of a splash guard for what comes out of the crankcase. So if you can do this on your side stand, that just means you're going to end up with much less oil on the floor. All of these bolts are the same, so there's no need to organize them really. And don't be afraid to take them all out, because this is actually locating on a pin that is also for your movable cam chain guide. After those are all removed, chances are we will dribble a little bit of oil because I ran this motor not very long ago. Just give the cover a little wiggle, and you can feel that it wants to pivot on that pin. So basically what you're doing is you're pulling the suction of oil off of that pin. You may feel a little bit of spring tension on it, but don't be too alarmed. And I just want to check, because this is still using the automatic chain tensioner. I want to see how tight it has the chain. It's got a little bit of side-to-side motion. I don't really feel any slack on the guide there. At this point, we're going to take our 1/2-inch socket extension and our spare latex glove, stick it inside a finger to keep everything clean, and we're going to go in right on top of the guide here. You're going to wiggle it in until it's fairly tight, because this is going to be what holds tension on the chain. Now, for peace of mind, the way that this chain works, it's not going to slip off if it loses just a little bit of tension. All of those fingers of the chain have to be at a certain angle to actually mesh up on the sprocket teeth. That chain has to straighten out considerably before it can actually pop out of the tooth or have enough slack to completely remove itself from the tooth outwards. And at this point, we'll start removing our automatic chain tensioner. Here's a little stubby guy, and use our extension and socket as a handle. These bolts are not really tight. If they are, something is wrong. One very important thing to note, and I'm showing this to you off the bike because it's a whole lot easier here, but when this thing is still on the bike, you take out this center bolt. There's a 3mm hex down in there that you're going to want to put a hex key in before you remove these bolts all the way. That way it holds that plunger in place. If for some reason that hex key is not in there as you remove these bolts, it's going to extend out the plunger all the way, and it's going to make this thing a royal pain to get out of the bike. Once those bolts are broken loose, if you have a 5mm hex key with a ball tip, you can just zip those guys right out of there, but I don't, so we're going to skip over this part. Now to start the installation of our manual chain tensioner, I'll go ahead and slide the gasket on here. Now, if this thing comes with your set screw bottomed all the way out in there, you're going to have to back it out to pull this plunger up. That way it will fit into your engine cases. If it doesn't want to fit, you've got to break your jam nut loose, move this set screw out, and that's going to pull your plunger in and give you more room to insert it. And after an attempt, or well, 3, I figured out that this adjuster had to be run almost all the way in order to get this to go into the engine case. Now, obviously it's not going to fit all the way into the case as is, so this particular adjuster uses a 4mm or 5/32 hex key to adjust. Yours may differ depending on the brand, so we're going to back that up a little bit, get it to where we can bolt it in there, and then we'll start running tension down. Alright, I'm sure somewhere deep down there is a torque spec for these little bolts right here. We're going to go with good and tight, because here again they're not under any kind of oil pressure, so leaking is going to be very minimal if any. So run them down hand tight, snug them down, should be good to go. So now it comes time to run the tension down, and this is where it'd be real nice to have a stubby 4mm if you've got one, or 5/32 if you've got one. This is going to require a little more feel. There's not an exact science to this thing. So we're going to be keeping an eye on the cam chain to make sure that it's not moving, pulling too tight, or any of that stuff. We're going to be slowly tightening our adjuster here, and we're going to have a hand on our extension to see when it starts getting slack so we can pull it out of there. Okay, and I've just hit a point where every wiggle that I've put on our adjuster, I'm able to feel through the extension here. So just a little more snug, and our extension slips right out of there. So that gets us in the ballpark. Now to actually dial in the tension, the simplest way to explain this is to take a finger and put on your cam chain, and you're going to feel for where you just have some side-to-side slack left on it. You don't want to pull it rubber band tight because you don't want to prematurely stretch your chain, but you also don't want to leave it loose and have it slapping around. And it really didn't take a whole lot more adjustment there. We still got a little bit of side-to-side wiggle, but there's not any real slack on the guide now. So we're just going to run down our jam nut, snug it up for right now. Now we'll clean everything up on our side cover, reinstall it, and torque those bolts down to spec. Now that everything's buttoned up on the timing chain side, we're going to use a 14mm hex to remove the plug on the opposite side of the case. And we're going to use a 19mm 6-sided socket to manually turn the engine over just to make sure it didn't slip time. I know by ear that chain did not slip while we were working on it, but as a safety precaution, it's probably a good idea if you've got the tools to do it. Roll this thing over by hand, let it go through at least one full revolution. Make sure that you're not feeling any kind of tension beyond the compression of the engine. And then we'll start the engine and we'll run in our chain tension using a mechanic's stethoscope. More so, I'm going to see if I can get an audio clip for you guys. You can hear the internals of the engine a lot better, and we're going to tune in to where we just quit hearing chain slack, but not tight enough that we hear the chain whine inside the engine. Very important that you check certain spots of the engine. Like you're going to want to check right by the chain tensioner. You may want to check up by the cams or on the jug somewhere. Don't get back too far toward the rear of the motorcycle in the case, or you're going to start picking up other noises, because the later MT09s also have a notoriously noisy slipper clutch basket. And that's it. And also on this bike, you can still hear that slipper clutch basket clacking around in there. But hopefully that helped you guys get this thing swapped out. Maybe it shed a little more light than some of the other videos. If I missed something and you've got any questions, please feel free to drop a comment down below and I will try to answer it the best I can. Right now, I'm going to go inside because it's freaking hot. And yeah, that's it. As always, guys, stay safe, stay sane. We'll catch you next time. Peace.